Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. To all of you who is currently watching this video, my name is Adam Fikri bin Bakurazi, and this video will explain. In this video, I will explain to you about the article review that I have made for an article title with the title "Conflict Resolution in an Islamic Context: Some Conceptual Questions" by Mohammed Abu-Nimer. So generally, this article talks about the comparison between the Middle Eastern types of conflict resolution and Western types of conflict resolution, and how we are going to adopt these two or to combine these two types. So firstly, the writers talk about the objectives of the person who want to do this. So because it is important, because when we know the objectives will influence on the effectiveness of this combination. So firstly, we have the person who think that Western types of conflict, Western ideologies on conflict resolution is more advanced, more developed. So if we were going to adopt this will have the Middle Eastern, or it's more accurate, the Islamic ones. Second, they see that because we see that many of cases, especially about terrorism and radical groups, have emerged, and the Middle Eastern states have been using these types of conflict resolutions and have failed to provide such a good result. So they think that maybe this Western type of conflict resolution is the alternative. And the third one is, I think the more reasonable objective is because they want to gain better knowledge and better understanding about this. So we move on to the next slide. So this is some three basic questions that has been outlined by the writers in this article. First, the goals, we have touched this, because why we want to intervene and apply these Western conflict resolution models, and if we want to do this, how the scholars can do this, and the resolution based on the academic discipline and a field of practice in the West. So if we want to compare between Western and Middle Eastern definitions on conflict resolutions, so we must understand that there is no basis in applying Western strategies without understanding the Islamic context. Why? Because the Western is conflict resolution is being developed based on their historical and cultural context. And if we are going to apply these types of models which have different background, different context onto the Islamic society, which have different background, this is going to cause troubles and not going to solve these issues at hand. So next, we are going to see the comparison based on three. We can call it as three angles. Firstly, based on the levels and processes implemented by both cultures, and next, the basic assumptions of conflict resolution, and the third party rules. First, we're going to see the processes and levels implemented between these two types of conflict resolutions. So if we see from the Western perspective, it covers more types of processes. Meanwhile, the Middle Eastern ones carried only three: mediation, negotiation, and arbitration. And also, in addition to that, Western conflict resolution is being implemented in many fields and many levels. We have interpersonal and family disputes, labor, community, local government, environmental issues, educational system, intra-state, and also inter-ethnic groups. Meanwhile, the Middle Eastern ones only covers interpersonal or family disputes, clans or tribes, interreligious communities, and intra-state. And we see the next angle, the Western and Middle Eastern basic assumptions of conflict resolutions. We see that you can pause and read it by yourself, but generally I will simplify it to you. The Western ones see the view as from the positive side, because he see that the conflict is positive, it's normal, it just need to be solved. However, in compared to the Middle Eastern's perspective, they see that the conflict is negative and must be avoided. This is, I think, because Middle Eastern sees that the conflict could result in a prolonged conflict between them, and also they values the relationship between each others more highly. Meanwhile, from the Western, why? Because they see that the conflict is positive, because based on their context, they actually the Western have come out with so many problems that they at the end of the day they see that violence is not the answer. So they seek to achieve understanding and achieve solution for the conflict rather than uh, to to let it prolong. Next, we see for the third party rules. Okay, for the Western, it involves professionalism because it has been developed for some times. It involves individuals' interests. Yeah, it focuses on individual interests, because if we want to carry out justice, we must compare which is justice is more suitable served upon. And also it has legal procedures and focus on achieving a fair deal between two parties. And for Middle Eastern, we have age as one of the factors, because basically when a third party want to mediate between two disputed parties, they see that age is an important factor, because they see that more older people have more experience and can give a wiser advice. And we also have political and military power. People with positions can influence the solution that has been given. And we see that religious affiliation, because Middle Eastern society have a strong religious affiliation, especially the Islamic in Islamic society. And also the third party also must know the history of the disputes. Compared with the Western, it doesn't necessarily knows the history, but just can inquire brief explanation. And next, for the Middle Eastern, it can be permissible to have connection between the parties involved, because they see that the parties can trust the person who is involving into mediate their affairs. And next, they hold on to their strong traditional belief systems and values in appointing a third party to solve their conflicts. So we have seen the third levels for comparison between Middle Eastern and Western models. So we going to see based on these types, when based on the comparison, what is the obstacles in implementing a Western models onto an Islamic society. So for the first point that the writers uh, talk about is how most of the proponents or the person who want to introduce these Western models assume that this approach is more related to a power relations between because generally they focus more on the confrontation between two powerful groups, and these types of approach will make it uh, harder for Western for the implementation of Western, because they will focus on the power the relation between powerful groups, and rather not focus on to the other types of conflicts. And also because of this, they will also only focus on the fundamentalist groups, and Islamic revivalist groups that has been proven to be more involved in conflicts. So this will result in many of the solution will not being able to carry it out. And also because of this, the Islamic society also, many of them feel antagonism and humiliation toward the West, because many of the previous territory of the Middle Eastern has been occupied and has been many of them have the perception of them as the colonial powers, so they have bad perception to it, and this causing bad impact on the needs why we must accept their ideas. And also lastly, the contending parties, the parties in the conflict, also feel that there has been some difficulty in finding common grounds between both of them, and in turn influence on how we are going to settle the conflict. And also in addition to that, many of the parties in the Middle Eastern society sees as them as the only holders of the ultimate truth, and this will impede the process in bridging the gaps, and this bridging the gap is important in conflict resolution. And also they also, as I mentioned earlier, they reject the Western ideas and perceptions. So in the future, the writers, and to conclude this article review, the writer says that there is a pressing need to first examine the principles and procedures that exist within the Islamic society, which we have none, or there's a little study about it, about this perspective. And also we have to look at the phenomenon of the white social legitimacy which traditional mediators enjoy in an Islamic, particularly Arab context. And also we can examine the effectiveness of local and regional mediators in terms of Middle Eastern society. So I hope this video will help you understand about conflict resolutions and how the Western models impacts if we are going to apply it in an Islamic society. And you can also find these articles in internet and read it and give it a thought about yourself. So this is the end of the video. If you have comment, you can comment it and I will answer the question. Thank you. Thanks for watching.